Stephanie McMahon's hands were shaking. The air around her felt heavy, suffocating, as she stood in the middle of the WWE production office, staring at her phone like it had just told her the most impossible news in the world. One moment, she was reviewing creative scripts for Raw. The next, she was being told that her father, Vincent Kennedy McMahon, had been involved in a violent, life-threatening car crash. The words didn't even sound real. Vince McMahon. The man who built an empire. The man who seemed invincible. The man who survived business wars, lawsuits, and even his own wrestlers turning on him. The man who could stare down Brock Lesnar without flinching. And now, he was fighting for his life somewhere on a dark stretch of highway. The first reports were confusing. A wreck on the outskirts of Stamford, Connecticut. Late at night, Vince's car, a custom black Cadillac Escalade, had been found crumpled against a twisted guardrail. Emergency responders described it as one of the worst scenes they'd seen in years. Stephanie's heart pounded. Her voice cracked as she asked the only question that mattered. Is he alive? The silence on the other end of the call made her knees weaken. She felt her chest tighten, her throat close. Finally, the paramedic on the line spoke. We've got a pulse, but it's bad. You need to get here now. Within minutes, WWE headquarters descended into chaos. Executives, assistants, and producers whispered in panic. Triple H stormed into the office, his face pale, jaw clenched like he was holding back 1,000 emotions. Steph, what the hell happened? But Stephanie couldn't even answer. She was frozen, staring at the floor as tears began to pool in her eyes. This wasn't just her father. This was Vince McMahon, the man who had been her hero, her tormentor, her business partner, and her constant presence in life. And now, she didn't know if she'd ever hear his voice again. Social media exploded within minutes. The WWE universe lit up with speculation. Is this storyline or real? Vince McMahon in a car crash? No way. This could change WWE forever. By the time Stephanie and Triple H jumped into their sub and sped toward the hospital, TMZ had already posted blurred photos from the crash site. Headline after headline flooded the internet. Vince McMahon fighting for his life after horrific car crash. Police investigating possibility of foul play. That last one hit Stephanie like a gut punch. Foul play. Someone might have done this to him. When they reached the hospital, the sight nearly broke her. Vince was lying on a stretcher, surrounded by doctors and nurses, his face partially bandaged, one arm bent at an unnatural angle. Tubes and wires ran from his body. His normally commanding presence was gone. He looked fragile. Triple H pulled Stephanie close, whispering in her ear. Steph, you have to be strong. If he wakes up, he's gonna need to see his daughter, not the WWE executive. His daughter. But Stephanie wasn't just scared. She was angry. Angry that the world found out before she could even breathe. Angry that people online were already debating his legacy like he was gone. Angry that somewhere out there, if this was foul play, someone could be celebrating. That's when the real bombshell dropped. A police detective approached Stephanie and Triple H in the waiting area. His expression was serious, voice low. We have reason to believe this was not an accident. The brake lines in Mr. McMahon's vehicle were deliberately cut. Stephanie's eyes widened. Triple H stepped forward, his voice sharp. Who would do that? The detective glanced around the room, making sure no one else was listening. We can't confirm anything yet, but we have a list of people who might have had a motive. And some of them are very close to your family. Stephanie felt her stomach turn. The list. What did that even mean? Was this someone from inside WWE? News traveled fast backstage. By the time Raw went live that night, the locker room was buzzing. Wrestlers whispered in corners. Producers checked their phones constantly for updates. The commentary team mentioned the crash briefly, their voices somber, but everyone watching at home could feel the tension. And then came the first real crack in the facade, a moment that would set the WWE universe on fire. As the show returned from commercial, the camera cut to the backstage hallway, where Shane McMahon was seen storming out of a closed-door meeting with the police. His face was red, his fists clenched, and when a reporter asked him for a comment, he snapped. Not now. You have no idea what's really going on here. The internet went insane. Fans began speculating that this was all part of some massive storyline. Others believed something far darker was brewing, a family war, years of resentment finally boiling over. And while the world speculated, Stephanie McMahon sat by her father's hospital bed, holding his hand, whispering through tears. Dad, if you can hear me, I need you to fight. You've fought everyone in your life. Ted Turner, WCW, Congress, you can fight this too. Please, don't leave me. Not like this. Her voice cracked as her grip tightened. But deep down, she couldn't shake the detective's words. Someone had done this. And if she found out who, there would be no forgiveness. The weight of the moment was suffocating. Stephanie's voice cracked again as she turned to Triple H, her eyes wide with both terror and disbelief. Paul, they said Dad's car flipped 3 times. Triple H, who had been trying to keep a steady face for her, clenched his jaw. His hands were balled into fists, the veins in his forearms visible. This wasn't just about Vince McMahon, the WWE chairman. This was about Vince, the father, the stubborn, larger-than-life force that had been the backbone of their lives for decades. Every second felt like an eternity as more calls came in. WWE officials, lawyers, even rival promoters, everyone wanted to know the same thing. Was Vince McMahon alive? Somewhere backstage, production crew members were whispering about the cause of the crash. A few said it was due to the heavy rain on the highway, others speculated that another vehicle had been involved. But one voice, one that sent chills through the air, whispered the words no one wanted to repeat out loud. What if it wasn't an accident? The thought hit Stephanie like a gut punch. Her tears were now mixed with rage. If someone did this to him, if someone planned this, she stopped herself, her voice trembling, her breathing quickening. Security personnel moved in, suggesting she go somewhere private. But Stephanie refused. She stood right there, in front of cameras and crew, not caring about optics. No, I'm staying. I need to know everything right now. As more updates trickled in, the crowd outside the arena, already buzzing about tonight's show, began to pick up on the whispers. Phones started lighting up. Social media feeds went into overdrive. Hashtag Pray for Vince began trending worldwide in under 15 minutes. Fans were divided between shock, concern, and pure speculation. Then came the first official police statement. An officer on the scene confirmed to a reporter that Vince's vehicle had veered off the road and collided with a guardrail before rolling multiple times. But what truly set the WWE universe ablaze was the fact that another car was seen speeding away from the scene moments before the crash. Stephanie's knees buckled. Triple H caught her before she hit the floor. The cameras caught it all. In that instant, it was no longer just an accident in people's minds. It was a potential attack. And if it was, who in the wrestling world had enough of a motive to take out Vince McMahon? Stephanie's voice was shaking as she spoke again. I need to see him. I need to be there. I don't care what the doctors say. I don't care about the security protocols. He's my father. Paul, Triple H, Levesque put a hand on her shoulder, trying to calm her down, but his own face betrayed the worry he was feeling. Steph, we don't even know if they'll let anyone in right now. They're saying the accident was bad. Really bad. The words hit her like a sledgehammer. Bad. In the world of wrestling, bad usually meant a storyline injury or a scripted drama. But this was real life. This wasn't creative writing. This was cold, brutal reality. The production crew inside the arena had no idea whether to continue filming or to shut everything down. On one monitor, you could still see a crowd full of confused fans chanting, "We want Vince," unaware that the man they were calling for was lying in a hospital bed, fighting for his life. And then, the bombshell hit. A producer rushed into the gorilla position, out of breath, his headset slipping off his head. Steph, Paul, you need to hear this. His voice cracked like glass under pressure. The police just found out the crash might not have been an accident. Stephanie's blood ran cold. She took a step back, her mind racing. What do you mean, not an accident? They're saying the car was tampered with. Brake lines cut. It felt like the entire room had stopped breathing. The air was thick with shock, anger, and fear. Triple H's eyes narrowed instantly. He was already thinking like a man who had enemies in every corner of the wrestling business. So you're telling me, someone wanted Vince dead? The producer didn't answer. He didn't have to. The silence was confirmation enough. Stephanie grabbed her phone and started dialing furiously. She wasn't just Vince's daughter right now. She was a McMahon, and McMahons don't crumble under pressure. They fight back. Her tears began to dry, replaced by a cold, burning determination. This isn't just an accident anymore, she said through gritted teeth. This is war. The world of WWE had seen betrayals before, family members turning on each other, legends stabbed in the back. But this was different. This was a real-life power struggle that could tear the company apart. And as news of Vince's condition and the suspicious crash spread online, the WWE universe went into absolute meltdown. Fans flooded Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube, posting wild theories, naming possible suspects, and demanding answers. Was it a business rival? A bitter ex-employee? Or someone inside WWE itself? One thing was clear. The truth was going to come out. And when it did, it was going to rock the entire wrestling world to its core. Stephanie's shattered silence. Stephanie McMahon's sobs began to fade into deep, uneven breaths. She was still seated in the same position, one hand clutching her forehead, the other gripping the phone so tightly her knuckles were white. Her tears had dried into faint streaks, but her eyes were still puffy, red, and full of something far more complicated than grief, an unshakable suspicion. She finally whispered to the officers in the room, her voice hoarse, "I need to see him, now." One of the detectives shook his head. "Ma'am, he's in critical care. You can't." She cut him off, standing so abruptly that her chair toppled. "I wasn't asking. I'm going to that hospital." The hospital corridor of whispers. By the time she arrived, escorted by WWE security and shadowed by 2 detectives, the hospital was already a circus. Paparazzi crowded the parking lot, EMTs and nurses hustled in and out, and the smell of disinfectant hung heavy in the air. Everywhere she walked, heads turned. Staff whispered behind their masks. "That's Vince's daughter. Is it true? Was it really an accident?" Stephanie pushed through until she reached the ICU door. A nurse blocked her path. "Ma'am, he's not stable. I said I need to see my father," Stephanie snapped, her voice breaking in equal parts desperation and authority. The nurse hesitated, then slowly stepped aside. A broken titan. Vince McMahon, the man the WWE Universe had only ever known as larger than life, was now a shell. His head was wrapped in thick bandages, a respirator pumping life into his chest. The steady beep, beep, beep of the heart monitor filled the room, slicing through the suffocating quiet. Stephanie approached, her knees almost buckling. She gripped the side rail of the bed and stared at him. "Dad, it's me. I'm here." No movement. No response. Just the sound of machines. Her mind flooded with questions. Who would do this to you? Why that road? Why at that time of night? But one thought drowned out the rest. This was no accident. Hunter's fury. Behind her, Triple H stood motionless, his jaw tight. His eyes darted to the detectives. "We need the black box from his car. We need the security cam footage from that intersection. Every single camera in a 10-mile radius. This doesn't smell right." One of the detectives shifted uncomfortably. "We're already looking into it, but there's something you should know." Stephanie turned sharply. "What?" The detective lowered his voice. "Before the crash, someone reported seeing a black SUV tailing your father's car. That SUV hasn't been identified yet, and it didn't show up on any of the city's main traffic cams." Triple H's fists clenched. "So it just vanished. That's not possible unless..." Stephanie cut in, her voice trembling, "unless someone knew how to avoid being seen." The locker room reaction. Back in the WWE locker room, news of Vince's condition was spreading like wildfire. Superstars paced the hallways, some in shock, others in disbelief. Kevin Owens muttered to Sami Zayn, "This doesn't add up, man. Vince doesn't just drive alone in the middle of the night for no reason." Roman Reigns stood in silence, leaning against the wall, his eyes dark. If someone targeted him, they'll regret it. Even CM Punk, never one to shy away from criticizing Vince publicly, was unusually quiet. He glanced at the TV screen showing the breaking news coverage and muttered, "This is going to change everything." The footage that changes everything. Hours later, a hospital security guard approached Stephanie with an iPad. "Ma'am, there's something on the hospital's parking lot cameras from just before you arrived." Stephanie took the tablet and pressed play. The grainy footage showed the ambulance pulling up with Vince inside, but in the background, parked far from the emergency bay, was a familiar black SUV. The same SUV from the witness report. It sat there for nearly 3 minutes, then slowly pulled away without headlights. Stephanie's hands shook. "Hunter. It was here. They followed him all the way to the hospital." Triple H's eyes narrowed. "Then this isn't just a hit and run. This is a message.